Okay. So this afternoon, final Dhamma talk is on craving. Something we all tend to do from time to time. Definition of craving. There are these three cravings. Which three? Craving for sensuality, craving for becoming, craving for non-becoming. These are the three cravings. And that's out of the Iti-Utaka 58. So we can see craving for sensuality is easy to see. We're always chasing after sense pleasures. We don't search for things that we don't like, we search for things that we do like. So basically from the time we wake up in the morning to the time we go to bed, we use our sense doors to seek out cravings. And then we have the more subtle cravings. Craving for becoming, and that's due to our attachment to the sense desires. And craving for non-becoming, which is due to ill will. And craving for non-becoming, which is unwholesome, is not the same as the wholesome desire to attain arahantship. And the Majjhima Nikaya 105 says, craving is an arrow. The poison of ignorance spreads its toxin through desire, passion and ill will. There are 6 kinds of craving. These are the 6 classes of cravings. Craving for forms, craving for sounds, craving for odours, craving for flavours, craving for tangibles, and craving for mind objects. These are things that we think about. Majjhima Nikaya 9. So what traps us in samsara? The Buddha said this: monks, I don't envision even one other fetter, fettered by which beings conjoined go wandering and transmigrating on for a long, long time, like the fetter of craving. Fettered with the fetter of craving, beings conjoined go wandering and transmigrating on for a long time. Bound with the bondage of craving, their minds smitten with becoming and non-becoming, they are bound with the bondage of Mara. People with no safety from bondage, beings going through the wandering on, headed for birth and death. While those who've abandoned craving, free from the craving for becoming and not becoming, reaching the end of fermentations, though in the world have gone beyond. That's the Arahant. The Arahant has actually got no more craving left. He's abandoned all of his cravings. But you know, the Arahant can still see, can still smell, hear, taste, touch, and think. But there's no craving associated with the sense doors. He understands seeing is seeing, hearing is hearing, smelling is smelling, tasting is tasting, touching is touching, and thinking is thinking. But he doesn't associate anything with these things. He can see a person dying and doesn't get upset. It doesn't mean to say that he has no compassion, but he just understands this is death. He can see a beautiful form He just understands it as a form, without attaching beauty to it. It's just something that he sees. And there's no attachment, and there's no ill will associated with any of the sense doors. So we don't go plucking our eyes out and go, well, that's that sense door taken care of. That's not renunciation. That's just silliness. Sticking pencils in our ears to rupture our eardrums so that we can't hear things. That's not the way that we renounce things. But we do, slowly through the practice, give up craving. We do through the practice slowly give up ill will. We were talking about ill will just before. Sometimes things happen that can make us a little bit annoyed. So how do we overcome this? We were talking, I don't know, the other night we had Bhante Nanadhaj here. Talking about metta. I was talking about fake it till you make it. Sometimes we get into situations that we don't like. Sometimes we come up against people that we don't like. And metta, we tend to start with metta, may I be happy. May I be free of suffering and the cause of suffering. May I know happiness and the cause of happiness. May my family, yada 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 yada. May my enemies be free from suffering. Hang on a minute. No. I don't want my enemy to be free from suffering. I want them to really suffer. And it's like I was saying, when I first started practicing meditation, if I'd have been saying the words out loud, you may have got the impression that I didn't quite mean it. Yeah, may he be happy. Because it's not easy to have compassion for people that, we think have harmed us in some way. We don't want them to be happy. We want them to suffer worse than they made us suffer. And so, so it starts up, we fake it. We fake it until we make it. And it's funny because we can make it. See, Bhante Nanadhaj was saying, he was talking about when he was a young novice, and he was full of anger. Didn't like any of the other novices. Was quite mean to them, bullied them, picked on them. And so his teacher made him do this metta meditation out loud. I will be happy, I will be well, I will be peaceful. And he had to do that constantly. Every time his teacher walked past, he'd be, I am happy, I am well, I am peaceful, I am... he saw somebody he didn't like, may you be happy. But he was faking it. But after a while it became real. You can't help but start to change. I was saying, when we do these things, we have to do it with a smile on our face. It's very hard to be not happy when you're smiling. You see, your brain gets fooled. So when you've got a smile on your face, your brain figures that there must be something pleasing. And so it's very hard to hold negative thoughts while you have a smile on your face. So when we sit down and we do meditation, we smile. It's so much easier. And of course the other thing, when we meditate, we're supposed to be relaxed. Now, it's a scientific fact that you use less muscles to smile than you do to frown. You see, it's harder to pull your mouth down than it is to lift it up. So you're actually doing a relaxation technique when you smile. So it's good for you. So we start off, as I say, we're using the sense doors, and sometimes we're faking it, you know. I mean, you're walking down the road, you see a pretty girl, it's like, oh, pretty lady. You know that you mean pretty lady, but then you stop it. You deliberately force yourself to stop thinking in, you know, good looking, not good looking, fat, not fat, whatever. We just see a person. It's a form. And again, when we're doing this, at first we've got a tendency to fake it. It's just like, you know, you see a good looking lady, you know what I'm talking about, fellas. Alright? Even you ladies do it, eh? You see a big, handsome, hunky looking bloke go, oh, it's nice. But we start to fake it, you know? So we start to try and cut this desire or ill will, if it's the kind of person you don't like, you know? And we deliberately force ourselves not to think this way. And eventually, we stop thinking this way. You know? But it doesn't happen overnight. It's like getting rid of anger or ill will towards the people that have done you wrong. It doesn't disappear because you sit there and go, I'm going to practice metta. No, you don't become a saint. It takes a bit longer than that. You know, it takes a lot of practice. But we can start to cut this craving off. And the more we practice, the more we find that it takes longer for these things to arise. And we tend to catch it quicker. And when we catch it quicker, we nip it in the bud. And we keep practicing and we keep practicing, and it takes longer and longer for these things to arise. You know, whereas, like, you know, at one stage, if somebody said something to you in a nanosecond, you just punched him in the face. You know, you might take 2 or 3 minutes before you punch him in the face. And then you get to another stage where you make a fist, but you don't actually punch him in the face. You know, slowly but surely, it's being cut off to the stage where you don't actually think about punching anybody in the face. You know, you're still a bit annoyed with them, but you don't want to put them in an ambulance. You know, that kind of thought's gone out of your mind. You know, and so, but it takes practice and it takes time. And somebody said to me the other day, I was talking about this, and they said, well, isn't it wrong to suppress anger? We're not suppressing anger. We are letting go of anger. Yeah, to suppress anger, really bad. You suppress anger, it can only stay in there for so long. You know when you're a young fella and your mum tells you got to clean your room up, you know? And so you shove everything into the wardrobe. Done it. And then next time she comes in, you go, clean your room up, and shove more stuff in the wardrobe. And then eventually you can't shut the wardrobe door. It flies open, all the junk just falls back out onto the floor again, you know. Oh, where'd that come from? You know? And anger is exactly the same. If we try to suppress our anger, eventually it will come to the surface. Something will be said, something will be done, and we'll react in a violent fashion, either through a bodily action or through a verbal action. And so we're not talking about suppression, we're talking about letting go. Now somebody says something to you, we understand that anger's arising. But then why does anger arise? Because we've got an ego. Somebody's offended our ego. Here in the Asian countries they call it face. Losing face. And it's not what your average Asian likes to do, is to lose face. So they get angry. Maybe they hold it for a while, but they will get angry. And don't get mad, get even. You know? And then we end up in all sorts of trouble. So we have to learn to let it go. So it's like we understand that something has offended the ego. And it's the ego that will keep us trapped in the cycle of samsara. Because we, these words, you hurt me with these words. No, you allowed the words to hurt you. Nobody can hurt you with words. You allow the words to hurt you. And then you get angry. Or even, say somebody hits you. Your natural reaction is to hit them back. Because basically your ego has been bruised even worse than your face. And it wasn't right for that person to hit you, so you're going to get them back. But in actual fact, all you're doing is creating non-virtuous karma for yourself. You've already got the blue eye, and bad enough, but now you're going to go and create non-virtuous karma for yourself by getting angry. And even an angry thought is the creator of non-virtuous karma. Every time you have an angry thought, you create non-virtuous karma. So we have to be very, very careful, We allow people to cause us to create non-virtuous karma. And that's ridiculous. Why would we want to do that? They've already hurt us once, and now we're going to let them hurt us again by creating non-virtuous karma for ourselves. So we have to practice guarding the sense doors. And this is the sensuality, and the liking and the disliking that takes place through the sense doors. So we need to learn how to guard the sense doors. If we can guard our sense doors, then we guard our virtue. When we guard our virtue, then we are on the road to Nibbana. A cause of dukkha. And what is the cause by which stress comes into play? Craving is the cause by which stress comes into play. Find that in Anguttara Nikaya 663. So, cutting the roots of craving. If its roots remains undamaged and strong, a tree, even if cut, will grow back. I was saying that earlier on. They start to grow little suckers. So too, if latent craving is not rooted out, this suffering returns again and again. So latent cravings can cause us to go from good rebirths to rebirths in the lower realms if we're not careful. And they accompany us from re-becoming to re-becoming. So we need to get rid of these cravings completely. That's what I was saying about ripping them out by the roots. You can't just cut it down to the stump. You've got to actually annihilate. It's one form of killing that the Buddha allows, is the killing of our cravings. That kind of killing's okay. Encircled with craving, people hop round and around like a rabbit caught in a snare. Tied with fetters and bonds, they go on suffering again and again for a long, long time. That's in the Dhammapada 342. So we're held down by the 10 fetters, held in the bonds of the fetters. And sometimes they seem pleasant. They seem so pleasant that we continue to suffer because we continue to chase after them lifetime after lifetime. And there's a thing that we call habitual karma. And habitual karma is the karma we carry on, the things that we enjoyed doing in previous lives, we can carry into our next life and our next life, and it becomes very, very difficult to escape the cycle of samsara when you have habitual karma. For a person forced on by his thinking, fierce in his passion, focused on beauty, craving grows all the more. He's the one who tightens the bond. So you see, you tighten your own bond. Can't say it was her fault, not my fault, that she was pretty, her fault. Yeah, no, your fault. You're the one who tightens the bond with your craving. But one who delights in the stilling of thinking, always mindful, cultivating a focus on the foul, he's the one who will make an end, the one who will cut Mara's bond. So you see here we're talking the stilling of thinking. We were talking earlier about, papancha. Just thoughts keep rolling in, rolling in, rolling in. We spend so much time thinking about the past, thinking about the future. But here the Buddha is saying, the one who delights in the stilling of thinking is always mindful, cultivating a focus on the foul. So what's this focus on the foul? It's actually understanding that these sense pleasures keep us trapped in the cycle of samsara. All these beautiful sights and smells and sounds and everything else, they keep us trapped. And the reason they keep us trapped is we keep chasing after them. We keep wanting to have them. We have something that's very pleasurable. We want more of it. And you see this with drug addicts. You take heroin, it's nice, it feels good, so you want to do some more. And it's nice and it feels good and you want to do some more. And before you know it, you're trapped in a cycle of taking heroin. And it's the same with any of the sense cravings. We're always after delightful sounds, delightful smells. People don't go, oh, let's go down to the waterworks, let's go down to the sewage plant. No, it's a nice day out, we'll have a picnic. No. Let's go down to that bird sanctuary we went to. That'd be a nice place to go and have your lunch. And so there, the birds might steal your sandwiches, I don't know. But it's still a pleasant place, You go to the bird park here in KL and it's very nice, And these are the kind of things we chase after. These are the nice sounds there, the sounds of all the birds. Very pleasant, nice and cool, tactile sensation on the body. Everything was there, Everything that was there, the nice smell of trees and grass and stuff like that, everything that we chase after, very pleasant place. Now, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with enjoying things, by the way. People, say to me, how can you say you like, that particular type of dish? Because it's nice. They go, well, you're not supposed to have cravings. I didn't say I had a craving for it, I said I liked it. It was a pleasant dish. But I have to accept that maybe tomorrow I don't get the same thing. That's what we call letting go. If I sit there going, I hope they bring that again tomorrow, now I'm starting to crave. I'm starting to desire this thing. But there's nothing wrong with liking something. Nothing wrong with enjoying something. Buddhism is not all about being a miserable git. Although if you look at some Buddhists, you might think it is. I think they get stuck on the first noble truth. Life is suffering. I better look miserable, otherwise I won't be a good Buddhist. I've seen people that look like this. Too scared to smile. I think if they smile, their face will crack. But it's not like that. We are allowed to enjoy ourselves. And in fact we should enjoy ourselves because we actually know that, there's an end of suffering. And when we know the end of suffering and the path to the end of suffering, then we should be happy people. So we shouldn't have any excuse to walk around looking miserable. We should walk around looking quite happy. So where does craving arise and where does it dwell? And where does this craving, when arising, arise? And where, when dwelling, does it dwell? Whatever seems endearing and agreeable in terms of the world, that is where this craving, when arising, arises. That is where, when dwelling, it dwells. And what seems endearing and agreeable in terms of the world, the eye sees endearing and agreeable in terms of the world. That is where this craving, when arising, arises. That is where, when dwelling, it dwells. And it's the same with the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, the intellect, forms, sounds, smells, taste, tactile sensations, ideas. Eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, and intellect consciousness. Eye contact, ear contact, nose contact, tongue contact, body contact, and intelligent contact. Quite a list here. Feeling born of eye contact, feeling born of ear contact, feeling born of nose contact, feeling born of tongue contact, feeling born of body contact, feeling born of intellect contact, perception of forms, perception of sounds, perception of smells, perception of tastes, perception of tactile sensations, perception of ideas, intention for forms, intention for sounds, intention for smells, intention for tastes, intention for tactile sensation, intention for ideas, craving for forms, craving for sounds, craving for smells, craving for tastes, craving for tactile sensations, craving for ideas, thought directed at forms, thought directed at sounds, thought directed at smells, thought directed at tastes, thought directed at tactile sensations, thought directed at ideas, evaluation of forms, evaluation of sounds, evaluation of smells, evaluation of tastes, evaluation of tactile sensations, evaluation of ideas seems endearing and agreeable in terms of the world. That is where this craving, when arising, arises. And that is where, when dwelling, it dwells. It's in the Digha Nikaya, chapter 22. Now the Dhammapada, verse 345 to 347, says, "That's not a strong bond, so say the enlightened, the one made of iron, of wood, or of grass. To be smitten, enthralled with jewels and ornaments, longing for children and wives, that's the strong bond, so say the enlightened. One that's constraining, elastic, hard to untie. But having cut it, they, the enlightened, go forth, free of longing, abandoning sensual ease. Those smitten with passion fall back into the self-made stream like a spider snared in its web. But having cut it, the enlightened set forth, free of longing, abandoning all suffering and stress." That's quite a statement, you know. Having a wife and children is a stronger bond than shackles made of iron. Shackles made of iron rust. Shackles made of wood rot. And so does grass. But our desire, the longing for our children, for our wives, which, people say it's a natural desire. But yeah, it is, but it keeps us stuck on the cycle of samsara. Because when we have these things, we don't want to lose them. When you've got shackles made out of iron, you want to get rid of them. But when you've got a wife, you've got a kid, you've got a nice house, nice car, you want to hold on to them. These are shackles that keep us bound. They're very, very difficult to give up. You know, you see sometimes when relationships go bad, you see people go into some of the deepest states of depression because they've lost the person they love. They'll even kill. They'll kill somebody, like a bloke will kill his wife just so that she can't go with another man. If I can't have you, nobody can have you. This is the kind of cravings that take place that can send people stupid. They're such a strong shackle that people have. Dhammapada 348. Gone to the beyond of becoming. You let go in front, you let go of behind, you let go of between. With a heart everywhere let go, you don't come again to birth and aging. Yeah. So that's it, let go. Simple.
Easy to say than done.
Easier said than done. Yeah, it takes a little practice, letting go. I mean, it does. I mean, we're conditioned, not only in this life, but in previous lives. There's a lot of conditioning, and therefore we have a lot of craving. And of course, when, like relationships, people often, they read the suttas and go, geez, Buddha didn't like women, did he? I was like, yeah, he did. Oh no, he says some nasty things about women. Well, no, not really. He didn't say nasty things. What he was saying was, for a bloke, a woman is quite a snare. I mean, it's like, we start off with little boys, we play with our trucks. We're quite happy playing with our trucks, Somebody says, oh, that girl knows you. Yuck. And then you turn 10. And all of a sudden it's like, ugh. I don't want to play with your truck anymore, So you've discovered girls. And that's it, we just go silly. Blokes in love are just, they're daft. Can't eat, can't sleep. It's terrible. We suffer. It's like we spend our entire waking time thinking about this woman that we're in love with until we meet another one, and then we just can't get rid of that one and go and get a new model, and we start all over again. Such a strong bond. And so when the Buddha, it's like, his terms may sometimes seem very unflattering, but it's not that he's actually got anything against women. He just knows how a bloke's mind works. He knows that, and when he says a woman's dangerous, it doesn't actually mean, she's dangerous. It just means, the way the bloke's brain's going to work, there's danger about. And so there's this snare, and it's like, and it's a natural thing. It's man and woman, in most cases. Man falls in love with woman, woman falls in love with man. And we do, we think, oh, this is forever. Yeah, right, 3 months. I keep telling people it's dukkha. But we do, we chase after these pleasures constantly. And the things a bloke will do, sure, blimey. Take her out for dinner, buy her flowers. This is before you get married, of course. Once you get married, you don't have to bother. And it's like, I gave you flowers when we were dating, you don't need them now. You've got the ring on my finger.
After marriage, the role reversed. After marriage, the role reversed. The wife have to cook and to clean the house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's right, there's no more restaurants, you can't cook. You know, I mean, us blokes aren't stupid, eh? We go out to, you know, when we start going out with a woman, we actually go out to her parents' house to see if her mother actually taught her how to cook. And if she didn't, then we just back off. She can't cook, she can't sew, and she can't wash clothing. It's like, no, she...
That sounds like me.
But it's true, you know, like, you know, we get attached, and it's a natural attachment, you know, but it's a very, very strong bond, you know, because you fall in love, and as I say, people do, they'll go doolally, you know, when it goes wrong. That means crazy, doolally. I'm not sure if it's a real word, but it sounds good, huh? So, you know, people do that, they'll actually go crazy. And, I mean, you hear these cases all the time, you know, people stalking people, you know, men stalking some woman, you know, and stuff like this, you know, because they get absolutely, totally obsessed sometimes. You know, it's a very, very strong shackle. As I say, the Buddha, when he uses these terms, he's not actually being nasty towards women, he's just warning men that, you know, this is how easily trapped, you know, he can become. It's one of the strongest bonds that a man has as a woman, you know, because our brains don't function on too many levels. You know. Food, woman, that's it. Job done to your average life is quite simple, really. So arrived at the finish, unfrightened, unblemished, free of craving, he has cut away the arrows of becoming. This physical heap was his last. I like that, this physical heap. Not the body, just physical heap. Free from craving, ungrasping, astute in expression, knowing the combinations of sounds, which comes first and which after. He is called the last body, greatly discerning great man. So this is a person who actually knows now that this is his last life. That after this, there is no more rebirth. All conquering, all knowing am I with regard to all things, unadhering, all abandoning, released in the ending of craving, having fully known on my own, to whom shall I point as a teacher? This is the Buddha. He's conquered all. All of the fetters have been cut. Unadhering. Nothing sticks to him. Teflon. Nothing can stick to the Buddha. He's abandoned everything. No more craving. But we know that the Buddha still had feelings, still had compassion. We know, you read the suttas and the Buddha, you hear he got up in the morning and then one of the first things he does is using his wisdom eye, he casts around to see who needs his help. So that's not somebody who's completely tuned out from the world. And not only does he use his two eyes, he uses his Dhamma eye to seek out who needs his help. Where can he be of the most assistance? Right here, right now. And he goes off to help people. So I said before, our senses haven't completely shut down. Now if you hear somebody crying, then you can go and see if they need some help. But we don't find ourselves trapped by the crying. You know, sometimes we hear somebody crying, we just don't care. Probably deserved it anyway. You know. Or we get too emotionally involved in it. But as we start to cut these things off, we understand that somebody's crying, so possibly they're in pain. And so we go and give assistance without getting caught up in thoughts. Because one of the hardest things, you know, you see somebody dying in a road accident, you can become very caught up in it. You can become very emotional. And in actual fact, if you become very emotional, then you're actually a waste of space at an accident scene. You know, I remember watching some place there'd been a massive earthquake, and you know, the buildings down, lots of rubble, and they knew there were people inside. And I was watching this rescue on the TV, and it struck me how calm the professional workers were, you know, the rescue crews. You had other people running around going, my relatives are alive, and they're screaming and they're yelling and they're carrying on. And the rescue workers are trying to get them to shut up, you know. And it's like people think, oh, that's not very compassionate. Well, yeah, it is. Because the rescue worker is listening. And maybe somebody is tapping on a piece of metal. Ding, 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 ding. You got somebody going crazy in your ear hole, you're not going to hear that ding, ding, and so you're not going to know where to search. And that's what we have to become like. We have to become like that rescue worker who can just stand back no matter how devastating things are and just focus on what needs to be done. Somebody's trapped. We need to get them out. There's no panic involved because he's not got the attachment that the other people have got. And they're just a hindrance, those people. I mean, yeah, we understand it's their family members, yeah, they're upset. But they're of absolutely no value whatsoever at their rescue site. You know, they're going to, the way they act is more likely to cause people to die than to be rescued. And this is what we're like. You become dispassionate. But that doesn't mean to say you're not compassionate or that you don't care. Being discompassionate just means you're able to sit there and deal with whatever comes up as it is. We're letting go. And we don't get distressed. Sometimes we can see terrible things, we want to run away from it. Well, that's not much good. We need somebody who can deal with that situation. And so that person's not a person who has no compassion. The compassion is there, but the way he uses the compassion is different to the way most of us, because, you know, we will overreact one way or the other. Whereas the person who's got the sense doors guarded neither reacts nor overreacts. He just is aware and knows what needs to be done. You know? So as I say, we see forms. We just understand that there's a form. It's not ugly. It's not beautiful. It's just a form. You know? When thoughts arise, there's just a thought. And we don't grasp onto that thought, you know, because we're thinking. We're always thinking about the past. We're thinking about the future. So we go chasing after these ideas. You know? Oh, I wish that would happen. I wish I could go back to that. We're attached to it. You know? But when a thought arises and we can just see it as a thought, then we're no longer held bondage by thinking. There is still thinking, but it doesn't hold us. There's no craving for it, and there's no aversion to it. We understand that there is just thinking. You know? And yes, it does take practice. A gift of Dhamma conquers all gifts. The taste of Dhamma, all tastes. A delight in Dhamma, all delights. The end of craving, all suffering and stress. And that's what we're here for, is to end all craving. to handle suffering and to handle stress. And it's only through the Dhamma, through the understanding of the Dhamma, that we can do this. I said earlier on, people say that you don't need the Dhamma to do meditation. True, but you do need Dhamma to attain enlightenment. So these are the 10 fetters. 5 lower fetters and 5 higher fetters. The ones that we tend to concentrate on at this stage are the 5 lower fetters. You will need to eventually conquer the 5 higher fetters, but as we start out on the path, it's the lower fetters. So there's the self-identity views. I, me, mine. Uncertainty. Grasping at precepts and practices. Sensual desire and ill will. These are the lower 5 fetters. Just quickly going through the higher fetters. It's passion for form, passion for what is formless, conceit, restlessness and ignorance. These are the 5 higher fetters. We start off in our meditation practice with the lower fetters. We usually go for the 3 of them to start with. So we've got self-identity views. This whole concept of the I. This ego. And we do things like, we say, I am angry. That always makes me laugh. One, you've taken ownership of an emotion. Anger is an emotion. Why would you want to own this emotion? Not the kind of emotion you'd think would, most people would, I'm going to go out and buy a box of anger. Wouldn't do that. I would go out and buy a box of anger. That's just silly. Buy a box of chocolates, not a box of anger. And so I'm angry. And I say, what? All the time. Yes, I'm always angry. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. No, don't be stupid. I was like, well, you can't say I'm angry. Angry sometimes. So when we look at anger, see, when we say I am angry, we take ownership of anger. That's our ego. Ego wants to own this anger, wants to grasp at it. So when anger arises, what do? We say, there is anger. Not I am angry, there is anger. And there it goes. Because we haven't taken ownership of it. When we take ownership of it, when we own something, we want to hold on to it. My car, my money, my boyfriend, my girlfriend. We don't want anybody else to have it. We want to own it for ourselves. So when we say I am angry, we take ownership of this emotion that we call anger. And so we have to start letting go. We have to understand that there is no I. When okay, in a conventional sense, and when we speak in a conventional manner, we use the term I, me, mine. But this is conventional reality. We need conventional speech, otherwise people wouldn't understand what the heck we were talking about. Oh, rupa, rupa, dhamma, rupa, rupa. That makes no sense whatsoever. So we use conventional speech, I mean, somebody told me off once because, I was on some, it was a Buddhist site, and, I had my avatar, which is a picture of me, but, people put avatars up, I know it's not Ajahn Chah when I see Ajahn Chah's avatar because he's dead. But you see this avatar, So somebody said on this particular site one day, they said, are you a monk? A fair question, because an avatar, it could be anybody, anything. So they see this avatar of me and they said, "Are you a monk?" So I said, "Yeah, I am." And then somebody else got on me, "No, no monk." Idiot. I mean, it's a conventional question and I had to answer it in a conventional fashion. Somebody said, "Are you a monk?" I said, "Yes, I am." You know? And somebody's trying to get clever, you know, "No, no monk." I just replied to him, "Yeah, no, I'm a Rupa Rupa." And they go, "Oh, what's that all about?" And I said, "I decided not to use conventional speech." I said, "Because you're too clever." You know? So we do. we use conventional speech. It's necessary. But at the end of the day, as we get into the practice, we start to understand. We start looking at the five aggregates, and we start to understand that this is just a whole heap of guff. And we look at the 32 parts of the body, and reflect upon the 32 parts of the body. Very difficult to see a body when you start to dissect it in such a fashion, spleen, liver, phlegm, pus, bile. Nice. This is the body that I want to hold on to. Urine, feces, nice. That's all part of my body. Charming. So we start to let go. There's a simile in one of the sutras where it talks about the guy that cuts up the cow at the crossroads. He's got a cow and he takes it and he chops it up, butchers it and cuts it up. So he's got, steaks and chops and this, that and the other. And there's various bits and bobs that you get from a cow. He goes and lays it out at the crossroads, And he said, "You can't see the cow. Where is the cow?" And so it's been chopped up into little bits and pieces. It's hard to recognise it. Or if you took a car, took your car and you absolutely took every panel off of the car and you pulled your engine out and you actually took every nut and bolt out of the engine and you pulled that engine into little bits and pieces, You took your carburetor and you actually opened the carburetor up and pulled all bits and bobs of the carburetor. Yeah, show me the car. There's no car. There's a whole bunch of stuff sitting on the garage floor. There's no car. Because a car is only bits and pieces made up. When you take bits and pieces away, then it's no longer a car. And it's the same with this body. When we start to view the body in that way, we can start to let go of wanting to grasp a hold of this thing that we call the body. When we start to let go of that, we start to let go of the ego. This whole self-identity that we tend to hold on to in life. Uncertainty tends to be in regards to the Dhamma. And now when we start to deal with these particular things that we're discussing here right now, these first few lower fetters, we're actually on the road to becoming stream enterers. For those of you who don't think you can become an arahant in this life. So uncertainty, doubts about the Dhamma. And we start to let go of these doubts about the Dhamma. But there's only one way to get rid of doubts about the Dhamma. Practice. Meditation. See, you don't just listen to the Dhamma. It's no good to just listen to the Dhamma. You have to ponder the Dhamma. You have to think about the Dhamma. And then you have to start to practice the Dhamma. You see, a monk can sit here and be as clever as he likes, full of fancy words and stuff. And you can sit there going, "Well, that sounded good." It's not the road to enlightenment. Listening to the cat and the hat is quite good. That's not the road to enlightenment. You need to understand the Dhamma. We need to ponder the Dhamma. We need to reflect upon the Dhamma. We need to meditate upon the Dhamma. And never just take a monk's word for it. I've been giving you some sutta references because what the monk tells you, he should be able to back it up with the suttas. And if it doesn't agree with the suttas, then you need to make a decision as to whether or not you wish to continue listening to that particular monk. Because some monks will teach you some stuff that, quite frankly, is just mind-boggling. I've heard some really strange Dhamma talks that featured the lost city of Atlantis, and some nuclear machine that was found in the mountains of Tibet that's several hundred years old. It was found by a Tibetan monk, but he sealed it in a crack, so it can't be. What the dog is this? It's not in the sutras, I'm sure. You know. So we have to be very careful that, you know, what the monk says is actually true Dhamma. This is a very important thing, true Dhamma. You know, there's a lot of Dhamma out there today that is not the Buddha's teaching. You have watered down versions of the Dhamma, what I call Dhamma light. And then you have just utter and complete lies. And I see so many times, you know, on Facebook, people, you know, they put up these Buddha quotes. Buddha never said that. Sometimes it's a bit close to something that the Buddha said, but the Buddha didn't say it. The way it's actually written changes the meaning to a degree. Still sounds nice, but at the end of the day, it's not the teaching of the Buddha. It may be Buddhist, but it's not the teachings of the Buddha. But then what is Buddhist? I mean, you know, just compassion. Compassion is not actually Buddhist. Nobody has a copyright on compassion. You don't have to be a Buddhist to be compassionate. So, but there are many things that sound like it might be of, you know, Buddhist origins. But if it's not the teaching of the Buddha, we shouldn't say that it's the teaching of the Buddha. We have to be very, very careful, and a lot of people do put it up as the teachings of the Buddha, and it's just, you know, it's not. So it's always handy if you can get a hold of the Nikayas, the suttas. And if you can't, then go to Access to Insight or Sutta Central. They'll soon sort you out. You can get all sorts of stuff on there, you know. So you can check against what's being said. You can check it against the suttas. You can check to see if it's actually Buddhist teachings or if somebody's making it up. Yeah, so sometimes, you know, I mean, monks will tell stories, which quite obviously isn't the teachings of the Buddha, but then they should be able to relate it back to what the Buddha said, you know. So, you know, sometimes, you know, like I might say something about my own life, things that I've done. Obviously, you're not going to find that in the sutras. You know, there's going to be nothing about me being taken to the police station anywhere in the sutras. But the story should come back to something that the Buddha was teaching us, you know, that can then be checked and verified according to the teachings of the Buddha. This is the true Dhamma. And so we have to get over this uncertainty, you know. We have a conviction. It's a conviction in the Dhamma, a conviction in the Buddha, a conviction in the teachings of the Buddha, and a teaching in the Arya Sangha. Now the Arya Sangha, of course, now we're discussing Arahants. Actually, an Arya could be described as a stream enterer as well. They're actually on the path, you know. They've entered the stream, so that would become Arya anyhow. But it's got to be somebody who's practicing, you know. So Arya Sangha, by the way, is not necessarily monastics, just in case you're wondering. Because basically monastics, without wanting to get into anything too much here, I have found one instance in the suttas where a layperson became an arahant. Only one. And he left home 2 days after his enlightenment. I found another one, but he wasn't actually a layperson, he wasn't a a monk of the Buddhas. He was a hermit who had heard the teachings of the Buddha and was practicing on his own. He wasn't one of the Buddha's disciples, but he certainly knew the teachings of the Buddha. He attained enlightenment, he became an arahant, and there was, as I say, the one householder who became an arahant, and 2 days after his enlightenment left the home life and became a monk. So there's not a lot of evidence of lay people becoming arahants. But hey, this is not a problem, you know, because you can become a Satipana, which is a stream enterer. And that's fine. If you become a Satipana, then you have a maximum of 7 more rebirths. You can't be born into a lower realm. And that's a maximum, by the way, of 7 rebirths. It could be as little as 1. You could become an arahant in your next life. Or you become a Sakadagama. 3 rebirths. Anagaman, it's a heavenly rebirth followed by Nirvana, or Arahant, it's all over. That's the way it is. But for a layperson, the first 2, at least, the first one definitely, that's just so easy. It's not even a difficult one. As long as you have this unwavering confidence in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, then the road to stream entry is quite a simple road. But it is an unwavering confidence. And the sutras tell us that no Brahmin or anything like that, no Brahmin, no Deva, no God, no deity could change our mind about the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. So we have unwavering confidence. So that's one of the fetters that we have to break, is doubt. Doubt about the teachings. And so we get rid of this doubt about the teachings by studying the teachings. And don't forget, Buddhism's not about blind faith. Buddha always said to come and to see. Ehipassiko. He didn't tell us to come and believe because he said it. He said we should check these things. And so how do we check? Is it wholesome or is it unwholesome? And we have to practice our meditation. It's through meditation that we start to see things clearly. We start to clear the mind of all the junk, because the mind will sit there going, yeah, no, don't worry about that one. Because you're going to be taking some of the fun that the mind's had away, so it's going to tell you not to believe this rubbish anyway. So when we start to clear the junk out, we actually start to see for ourselves, because that's what the Buddha says, we have to come and see for ourselves. He can't enlighten us. Nobody can enlighten us, only we can enlighten us. We have the teachings, which is the guide, but we still have to practice the teaching. So that's that one. And then rites and rituals. Clinging to rites and rituals. That's a biggie. And it's one I almost worry sometimes about getting into. Because there's a lot of rites and rituals that we perform. But it's attachment to rites and rituals that we have to be careful of. Precepts. People get attached to the precepts. And in actual fact, the precepts are only a guide. In the end, we let go of the precepts. But we don't break them, but we let go of them. They no longer become important. But sometimes we become real sticklers for the precepts. And you can't do that, it's against the precepts. You can't do that, it's against the right. You're supposed to be a monk. See, we're in shoes for it. I was saying the other day, monks are not supposed to wear shoes outside the temple grounds. It's a Vinaya offence. You won't see many monks here going down to Little India without their slippers on their feet. But I don't think people here would understand if we were wandering around Kuala Lumpur barefoot. Probably wouldn't be getting Buddhism a very good name. Those monks are so poor, it's not funny, they can't even afford a pair of shoes, it's disgusting. Goes against our culture. So what do? You put them on. But it is actually a Vinaya offence. A monk is not supposed to wear shoes in an inhabited area unless he is sick. So we can become sticklers for things like this. If you go over to Europe, where we have, Buddhism spreading throughout Europe, you could hardly expect a monk to do Pindabata in the middle of winter barefoot. He's going to die of hypothermia. He's wrong, and somebody you walk barefoot then you're not even, Sometimes we have to let go of some of these things, not get attached to them. And then we have all these rituals that we do. It's quite funny because every day, in the morning, after breakfast, and after lunch, I go to see whether or not the Buddha's eaten his food. Because we take Buddha a big tray of food in the morning, before breakfast. A tray of food gets taken over, a bit of chapati, some dal, fruit and veg. Every morning I'll just go and see if Buddha's eaten his breakfast yet. No. Lunchtime, go and see if Buddha's eaten his lunch yet. No. We don't have to put food on an altar. I've not seen Buddha eat it once since I've been here. No. It's a ritual. It's absolutely of no importance whatsoever. Even the incense, the candles, the flowers, we don't need to do it. But saying that is not unwholesome. There are reasons why we do this. It's devotional. But we just have to be very careful that we understand that it's devotional, but it's not necessary. Because I've seen people get frustrated because there's no flowers. Oh, we haven't got any flowers, what are we going to do? Don't worry about it. Didn't see Buddha leaning down to have a sniff of them last time he bought some. Not necessary, But people they'll get frustrated. When I was in Thailand, the Thais, when they do that yatawari, when you're doing your pindabata and you're supposed to do the chanting, and the Thais they've got a bottle of water. And they pour the water onto the ground while you are chanting. Transference of merit to the departed ones. But you see, sometimes the Thais they'll come and some of them they have a little basket. And it's got, some rice and some curry and some milk or some water. And they've got their water bottle. Well, sometimes they've forgotten to put water in the bottle. And they go into a panic because they can't pour water. And it's a ritual. There's absolutely no need to pour water. Absolutely unnecessary. But I've ended up at times fishing through my bag because, with people, you often get water with you. Yeah, use that. They're caught up in ritual that's absolutely not necessary. As I say, these devotional things, they're okay. They're not unwholesome. They only become unwholesome when we think we have to do them. When we think it's Buddhism. But it's not Buddhism. It's a cultural tradition. In actual fact, I would suggest that the flowers and the incense and everything else is probably Brahmanistic in its origins. Sometime after the Parinibbana of the Buddha, when the Brahmins tried to, actually not even before the Brahmins tried to get rid of Buddhism, but people who were coming into Buddhism from the Brahmanistic practices started to introduce some of the old ways. And this is the thing with Buddhism, wherever Buddhism spread, we can see the culture of the country. If you go to Sri Lanka, they have Indian deities in many of the temples. You know? Walk into a Buddhist temple and there's a Ganesha. What's that to do with Buddhism? Oh, nothing. But look at the tradition of the country. It was Hinduism. And so some of the temples have these Hindu gods. You go to Thailand, it's not unusual in a temple to see the spirit house. You know, the spirit house has got absolutely nothing to do with Buddhism. You know, it's ancient Thai tradition from way before Buddhism ever landed on the shores. But they still have the spirit house. You know, the spirits to protect the land. Because if you don't, I don't know if you Chinese do it, but you know, they build a house in Thailand or something, they put up a spirit house because you need to keep the spirits of the land happy, and if you do an extension to your house, you have to do an extension to the spirit house. You know, otherwise you upset the spirits. Absolutely nothing to do with Buddhism. It's a ritual. And people just cling to these things, and we've got to be able to let these things go. As I say, it's okay to do them. They're nice. You know, they're devotional, but they're unnecessary. But people cling to these rituals, and eventually we've got to drop them. There's a monk, I think he's in Thailand, he's just upsetting people because he won't prostrate to the Buddha statue. No, he said, for what? It's a statue. So he can't be bothered. He just walks on, he sits down, he does his meditation, he gets up and he walks out again. And he's actually right, it is just a statue. You know. Kind of wrong because he upsets the laity a little bit. You know, he could be a little bit more. You know, perhaps when there's no lay people about, he could go in and just sit. You know, maybe, you know, to get the laity happy to a degree. It doesn't hurt to prostrate to the Buddha statue, but he's right. It's not the Buddha; it's a statue. You know, it's not alive. It's a piece of tin or a piece of marble or something like that. You know? Once again, it's devotional. That's why you see them in all the temples. Every temple has at least one Buddha statue, most more than one. And I can understand where the monk's coming from. You know, he's breaking away from rituals. He's breaking away from rites. He doesn't want to do that as a monk, but I think he does need to kind of temper that a little bit. You know, just you don't need to be upsetting the laity too much, otherwise he's going to find he's going to have nothing for breakfast. You know, so yeah, but we can, you know, we need to be able to understand what is ritualistic. And so it's not necessarily that we don't do it, but we don't attach to it. So if it's not there, it's not a problem. If it's there, we can do it.
When other people bowing to the monks and all that, is that like showing respect? Is that a must or?
It is a respect thing, but I mean a monk, don't forget, is actually living as opposed to a statue. So it's just there's always been in Asia, there's always been a respect to teachers. You know, so you see if you go, you know, a lot of the schools, like in Thailand, you see the children, they all why to the teachers, they why to their parents, you know, anybody in authority, in fact, you know. And teachers are very, very well respected people. And so you see the children, they always why to the teachers. And a monk is considered a teacher. And so, you know, the wine. I mean, it was something for me personally, it was very difficult to deal with when I first became a monk. You know, I mean, us Westerners don't do a lot of bowing and scraping at the best of times, you know. It was very, very difficult for me to have people coming up and bowing and, you know, I went to Sri Lanka and they touch your feet. What are you doing? It's like it's just something that we're not used to. But, you know, you accepted it, you know, as a cultural thing, you know, and you understand that people are just showing you a form of respect.
But in overseas, do they do the same? Like in your country or Europe?
They'd be more likely to just bring their hands up, as opposed to, you know, I mean, your average Kiwi's not going to bow down and touch your feet, you know. If you try and tell them they should, they're probably going to thump you one. It's, you know, because it's, again, it gets very cultural. You know, it's like with, you know, in Thailand, if a woman goes to give something to a monk, the monk gets his offering cloth out and puts it down, and she puts whatever she wants to offer on that end, and he holds that end, and the offering's made complete. So you couldn't hand me this bottle of drink directly. I'd have to put a cloth out and receive it. You know, I tried doing that to a woman in New Zealand, I'd probably wind up in hospital. She'd give me such a hiding, you know, because she would just find it totally offensive. You know, I would be treating her almost as a leper. You know, no woman in New Zealand is going to tolerate that. In fact, I knew of one monk. He was in India. He was a Thai monk. He was on doing a pilgrimage in India, and they were receiving some stuff, and he had his cloth out, you know, and then some Sri Lankan woman came, and he put the cloth out, and the Sri Lankan woman told him off. You know, the Sri Lankan ladies were most offended that he used this offering cloth, and they refused to give him an offering if he wasn't prepared to receive it in his hands. So they're quite lucky, because if it was a Kiwi woman, she'd have probably just clocked him one, you know. Clocked him one, pinched the stuff that he'd been given and gone off. Teach him a lesson. So yeah, it varies from culture to culture, you know, as to just how people actually show respect. And I quite like the way they do it here in Malaysia. Malaysia's actually very laid back and casual, you know. That's not to say that the Malaysian people aren't respectful, but it's a more relaxed kind of respectful. And I actually feel quite at ease here in Malaysia, because it's not quite as formal as I found it in other countries, and that is actually, you know, it's actually quite a delight to witness. And that's why you see me, you know, I mean, I wave a lot, you don't see that in a lot of Buddhist countries.
Why can't they read?
Oh, I don't know. They don't look serious enough when they're waving. I mean, you know, you do see a lot of monks, they've got that, you know, look on their face like they've been sucking on a sour lemon. You know, they kind of just look miserable sometimes, you know. And it's like, well, I'm a monk, you know, so what? Smile. But it's funny, because I remember Ajahn Chah was saying once that when he used to have his photo taken, if he was having his photo taken with Thai people, they wanted him to frown. But if he was having his photo taken with Western people, they wanted him to smile. Two different cultures, you know? The Thais wanted this serious-looking monk. The Westerners wanted somebody who looked like he'd found happiness. It's a cultural thing, you know. And, you know, here, yeah, I don't know, but the people here have a tendency to, they have the respect for the monks, but there's not that big distance between the monk and the laity, you know. And for me personally, I think it's a lot better, you know. And I like the fact that I can give the thumbs up, or, you know, or wave to people, and it's basically it's accepted here. You know, whereas in some countries people would frown upon it. But I mean, that's my culture. My culture, we wave at people. How's it going? Idiot. Meta. I don't like you. Have a good day. It works. It works. But yeah, I mean that's a cultural thing, you know. In New Zealand, we greet people. Hey, how's it going? Thumbs up. You know, all right, mate. Don't even know the person. All right, mate. How's it going? Off you go. And so it's the same here, you know. Especially, like little kids. I got told off once in Sri Lanka for waving at these kids. You know, it's like, oh, Sri Lankan monks don't wave. I mean, I'm not Sri Lankan. The little kids, man. Little kids. They're waving at me. You know? They've probably never seen a white monk in their entire life. You know? So I wave back at them. Oh, we don't wave. No, I do. I don't want to scare the kids off. When a kid waves, I don't wave back. He's going to think, well, I don't think much of those monks. A miserable lot. I'll go and become a Christian.
Sometimes too much guideline, too much restriction.
Yeah, exactly. And that's because we try to hold on to these ritualistic ideas of what things should be like. The monk is up here, the laity are down here, and it's like we should be serious-looking people. And it's like we hold on to these things, and at the end of the day, we drive people away from Buddhism. Because if people don't feel comfortable around us, then eventually they'll move to where they feel comfortable. We actually drive a wedge between us and the laity, and then the laity leave. And it's like, well, where's everybody gone? Well, they're in the church next door. Well, they're doing over there, having fun. Apparently they can shake the pastor's hand. All right. And that's what we have to remember. We have to remember that we can drive a wedge between the devotees and the monastics. And people often say, especially in Buddhist countries, I often hear this, how can we get the children back? Stop being so nasty to them. Stop treating them as something that they're not. They're children. Treat them as such. That's how you get them back. But all the time you're sitting up there, with this big scary ogre in the orange robes, of course they don't want to come. Why would they want to come? Go to the fun fair if you want to be scared. You don't go to the women temple. Fun fair is the place that you go there to be scared. You go on these big machines that tip you upside down and rock you backwards and forwards. Well, you don't expect the big scary monk to be sat there scaring you off. Child, behave yourself. When I grew up, when we had that fun fair here the other week, it was great. Watching the kids messing around in the water and jumping up and down on the bouncy castle. That was fun. I mean, if I hadn't been wearing robes, or if the chief hadn't been around, I might have got in the water myself, Sometimes have to exercise a little bit of decorum. And for those who are interested, no, I did not use the paddle pool the night before. I behaved myself. I was well restrained. Though the thought did occur. Same with the bouncy castle. I nearly went on the bouncy castle, but it was wet. So I didn't, So there's a confession for you. I'm still a little child at heart. But that's the thing. So we start to let go of these fetters. This is what we're starting to cut off. Cut off these fetters. We're cutting off craving. Craving is the house builder. All the time we have craving, we are stuck on the cycle of samsara. So we have to let go of craving. So we have to guard our sense doors. Like I said, we don't poke our eyes out, we don't stick pencils in our eardrums and rupture them and stuff like that. That's just silliness. But we just start to understand that we see things, we hear things, we smell things, we taste things, we touch things, and we think things. But we don't attach to any of these things.
I have a question. So if you're guarding your senses,
Senses or sense doors. Well, we call them sense doors because this is the door that we see out of.
So does it mean you cannot have fun?
It certainly does not mean you cannot have fun. I mean, as I said, as a monk, I'm not really supposed to jump on the bouncy castle, so you've got to be restrained occasionally.
Oh yeah.
Or not get seen jumping on the bouncy castle. But no, of course you're allowed to have fun. It's just attachment to things. You see, like, okay, we had the carnival here, but that carnival occurs once a year. So you can't come to the carnival and then want to come the next day. I want to go back to Brickfields tomorrow and play on the bouncy castle. The bouncy castle won't be there tomorrow. It's going to go. So you have your fun, you enjoy your fun, but you understand that fun things don't last forever. They're permanent. There's a cause. Something causes the enjoyment. In that particular case, the bouncy castle. But the bouncy castle is not going to remain at Brickfields 365 days of the year. So you enjoy it while it's there, understanding that it's an impermanent thing. So that when it goes, you don't suffer. Well, no, we have to wait until everybody's gone home and the gates are closed and the lights are being turned off.
So there's a restriction.
If we were going to do such a thing. Well, actually, funny enough, I think a lot of the laity would get a great thrill if they actually saw a monk jumping up and down on the bouncy castle. There'd be all sorts of cameras out, but people would be offended. People were like, a monk's not supposed to be doing that. And so, sometimes there are actually some things that a monk won't do, even if he's permitted to do it, because it can be misinterpreted. And so often we've got to think, it may not be a Vinaya offence, because I can guarantee you there's nothing in the Vinaya that says a monk's not allowed to jump on a bouncy castle. This I can actually tell you for sure. But it could be interpreted the wrong way, and so we have to be doubly careful sometimes as monks that it's not only are we doing good, but we have to be seen to be doing good. And so we do have to be very, very cautious of what we do. So I had a friend in New Zealand. He's a pastor of a church, and the area where he lived, he had a couple of sets of traffic lights getting around to his house. We've got this big pub called the Birkenhead Trust, and like all pubs, they have to have a car park. I don't know why they're trying to stop drinking and driving, but you have to have a certain amount of car parking. And this was a huge pub and it had a huge car park. Well, if you drove through the car park, you could skip 2 sets of traffic lights and come out this way, so you cut a little bit of time off on your journey. So my friend, the pastor of this church, he used to cut through this pub just to save a bit of time. And then it dawned on him one day that people don't know he's taking a shortcut through the pub. All they see is the pastor's car coming out the pub car park. So it's like, oh, look at the pastor, drink driving. So he had to stop doing it, and he had to start going the correct way, stopping at the traffic lights. So although he was doing nothing wrong, he had to be careful of a perception that he could have been doing something wrong. And this is something that sometimes the monks have to think about, when they're going to do something, is how can it be perceived? Could people take it the wrong way? So sometimes we have to restrain ourselves, even though we may not actually be breaking any of the rules. So yeah, bouncy castles definitely after dark. Gate shut, no laity out, no cameras, and then apparently it would be possible. I didn't do it. Any more questions?
Isn't it in puja books Buddha image, we have to prostrate.
Yeah, but you see, what we have to be aware of is where these things come from. You see, now some of it comes from the commentaries, for instance. A lot of this stuff comes from later writings, and doesn't come from the suttas. It's been added at a later stage. See, the Buddha doesn't say that we have to worship the Bodhi tree, for instance, and give it offerings of betel leaves and stuff like that. There's nothing in the suttas that say we have to do this. So again, it's a devotional thing.
Devotional aspect.
Yeah.
You're free to practice it.
Now, see, we remember that the Buddha was enlightened under a Bodhi tree, you know, and so there is a significance to the Bodhi tree, but the Bodhi tree in and of itself isn't that important. You know? The Buddha's enlightenment is important, and the teaching that the Buddha gave us is important. Now, we don't need to give offerings to a tree, but it becomes a devotional thing, and that's all. You know? But you won't find it actually anywhere in the suttas.
You become a monk because you like the Dhamma or you like meditation?
I think it was meditation at first, to be honest. And I wasn't going to progress very far on the path if I didn't become a monk. You know, there was too many things out there that I enjoyed doing. And so I knew that I needed the company of monks. And I've been spending a lot of time in temples meditating. You know, I was starting to spend, like if I had, say, a 7 or an 8 month holiday, I was finding I was spending 5 or 6 months in temples just meditating. So I kind of figured that, you know, might as well become a monk. If you're going to spend that much time in a temple, you know, and why not ordain? And as I say, you know, I knew that out there in, you know, in your world, that I was going to struggle. There's always going to be things that, you know, that I was very, very strongly attached to, and I was going to require to actually cut myself from that completely. And if I was still out there, you know, having to do a job, you know, I mean, I worked out there, as I say, it was summertime, you know, so you can imagine, you know, clothing got less and less, shorter and shorter and stuff like that, you know, and so there's lots of sights and stuff that were very attractive to me, you know, rather be chasing those than getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to meditate. There's always the parties, you know, the drinking, and yeah, I would have struggled on my own, and so I knew that I needed to actually walk away from that completely in order to help myself in my practice.
Is it any bad consequences or bad consequences by taking reliance on calmness? Because we experience the calmness we get in meditation, and we take delight in it and we want to meditate. Is it?
No, that's not bad at all. You know, the Buddha does speak of, you know, there are certain things that are wholesome. You know? So we take delight. When we take delight in the calmness that we get, then it actually makes us want to meditate more. What we have to be careful of is that we don't get stuck in that delight, because there's more to meditation than calmness. And so, but people they get that calmness and they desire to have that calmness again. Now, again, that's not a bad desire, but it's something that we begin to cling on to. And then what happens is, if you don't get that calmness the next time you meditate, then you get upset. You think you're rubbish. And then eventually quit meditating because you can't get what you had before. So it's not a bad desire, but we have to be prepared to let go of our desires. Because if we don't let go of the desires, then we won't advance in our meditation. And as I say, sometimes people can get a nice calm stage and they're happy with that. And that's all they seek. And that's not what we should be seeking.
But isn't it, once you have delight and you like to meditate more, the more calm you are, then that's where your mind is still calm. Only then you see you penetrate into the reality.
That's right. It is. And that's why it's not a bad desire, but we just have to be very careful that we don't cling to the desire. And so we just keep the practice up, and we don't try to force these things to come back. When we don't force it, it will come back. But if we try to force it, we can find ourselves being very, very disappointed. And so, yeah, the desire to meditate is a good desire. It's a healthy desire. It's a lot better than desiring not to. And so it's a good thing that we do desire these things, because it makes us want to meditate. But as I say, that calm feeling, we have to be very careful, because sometimes people think that's the end of it, wow, the jhana, when they're not in jhana. They'll just get to that happy state, that calm state, and then they don't push any further, they're just content to stay there. It's just the beginning, And so we get there and we just continue, but we don't cling. We have the happy state, that calm feeling, but we don't cling to it. So although we want to abide in it for a little while, if we try and grasp onto it, then there's a good chance that we'll lose it. Because that's what people, they get to that state, and I want to keep this, well that's it, it's gone. As soon as you start desiring to keep it, it's going to go away. But if you just understand that this is a calm state, then you're not grasping at it. And then it has an opportunity to actually go a little bit deeper, a little bit further. But desiring to meditate is definitely not a bad desire, it's a wholesome desire. But as I said before, sometimes things happen. If you've got a kid and your kid falls down and breaks his arm, and you're like, well, I'll take you to the hospital after I've meditated. Probably not a good thing. Probably best to, some people are inconsiderate. Couldn't have broken your arm in 20 minutes time and I'll finish my practice. That's not a good thing to be doing. You have to be able to give up that meditation and take the child to the hospital straight away. Because they're not going to understand why you meditated first, before bringing your injured child in the hospital. So that would be taking it too far. And your child's not going to be best pleased with you either.
In Sutta, we know that when Buddha entered into Parinirvana, Buddha didn't say that whether after that he exists or he does not exist. Buddha didn't mention. So what do you think? When Buddha entered into Parinirvana, do they still exist? Do they still bless the people?
Do they still bless the people? Well, I can say no to that. No, absolutely not. The blessing of the Buddha that we have is the teachings, is the Dhamma. The Buddha said himself that after his parinirvana, the Dhamma is the teacher. You see? Because there's all this thing about who's going to be the teacher, who's going to be the boss, who's going to be the head, What's it? The teachings. It's the teachings, Parinirvana. We talk about the blessings of the Triple Gem. Now, if we understand the Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha, these are blessings. These are the blessings. But, I know some people, they pray to the Buddha. A wasted breath. Absolute wasted breath. The Buddha couldn't do miracles for people when he was here. So he's hardly going to do it when he's not here. The Buddha could just point the way, and that's all the Buddha could ever do. He said as much himself, that He wasn't, you couldn't go and touch his robes and become an enlightened being. He couldn't take his slipper off and slap you up the side of the head and you got enlightenment. It didn't work like that. It was always down to us. He could point the way. He could give advice, and while he was here, he could give advice on an individual basis. But now we just have the suttas and the people who teach, whether they be monastics or lay people. We have people who are teaching, and so we can listen to the teachings and then we can practice according to the teachings. And that's the blessings of the Buddha, that he gave the teachings in the first place. The blessings of the Dhamma is that we have the Dhamma, we can still hear the Dhamma. And the blessings of the Sangha, whether you look at the Sangha as the fourfold Sangha or just the twofold Sangha, the monks and the bhikkhunis, we still have them. So we have that blessing, that there are still people who want to live their life as monastics and to teach. So that's the blessing that we get from the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. But no miraculous stuff, So I can remember when we did the examination blessing, and I was quite pleased when the chief said, "This doesn't mean you don't have to study." Because a lot of people, they think, come to the monk and he'll give me a blessing and I'll pass my exams. No, you got to study. The blessing, that just lets you know that we're all with you. We all understand that this is a tough time. This is an emotional time. For a lot of people, it's a scary time. And so it lets you know that, hey, we're behind you, one way or the other. You've got people who are supporting you, who are with you, who are wishing you well. But there's no magic chant that's going to auto-fill your exam papers with the correct answers. So you do. I remember Ajahn Brahm had that problem. There was a girl in Aussie, and Ajahn Brahm, he's not big on blessings. And this girl went, and she wanted a blessing, something for her exams, and he was like, no, I don't do that. But she got very insistent, so in the end he gave her one. He didn't see her for some time, and when he ran into her in town somewhere, and she's like, because I haven't seen you for a while, and she's like, well, you're a useless monk, I didn't pass my exams. Which is exactly why Ajahn Brahm has a tendency not to give blessings, And she seemed to think that, blessing from Ajahn Brahm, she could bunk off school, do nothing, and then pass her examination. That doesn't work like that, It's quite right not to give blessings. Be very careful. I'm very cautious of giving blessings myself, because it's like something goes wrong. You used to get it in Thailand, people, bless my motorcycle. Nope. I don't bless motorcycles. And it's like, and they used to get quite upset, And the monks, they couldn't understand, why don't you bless their motorbike? It's like, you must be mad. Bless their motorbike, I said, when they drove in here, I said they were texting. One hand on the moon, the other hand, checking Facebook. So, put a piece of string around the handlebars of that thing, wish them well. And I said they go and drive out the gates and get creamed by an SUV coming up the road. I said, because they're busy tweeting something. I just had my bike blessed by such and such a monk. I said, so it's not going to be down to their bad driving, it's going to be down to the fact that you're a rubbish monk. No, I don't bless motorbikes. I'm not that foolish. I don't need the money that badly. So yeah, we've got to be...
But we have this 31 rank of existence where we have this spirit. So maybe they need a blessing to get rid of the bad spirit that may cause harm.
No, the motorbike's the bad spirit that causes harm is called Facebook. I I tell you, you cannot text and ride a motorcycle at the same time. That's madness. And you see it happening all the time over there. They're just constantly on their phone checking it. And it's like, and the car drivers, they don't care about people on motorbikes. It's the might is right rule. So they've got a big vehicle, get out of the way. It doesn't matter who's got the right of way. They've got the bigger vehicle. And so these people, there's no evil spirits on a motorbike. Evil spirits wouldn't ride a Honda 125cc wave. An evil spirit would ride a Harley. An evil spirit would ride a cool motorbike. Not some 125cc rice burner.
Likewise, in the Buddhist tree, people like to do blessing, ask for the blessing, especially for those who are sick in the Buddhist tree, because we believe that in Buddhist tree, in the sacred area, there are devas residing. So we chant suttas, and then we ask for blessing, hoping that this deva will that or those are infected with sickness will have less suffering.
Yeah, you can do that, but I mean, and if it's possible, maybe there are devas who will hear this and maybe help in some way or another, But basically, it's up to us. See, we can't rely on devas. So we have to understand that. See, if we're sick, the first thing we have to understand when we're sick, it's like this could be karma. Sickness could be our karma. So if it's our karma, no deva can take our karma away from us. Not possible. I'm owner of my karma, heir of my karma, born of my karma. So if it's our karma to be sick, it's our karma to be sick. Who can take that away? Nobody. No deva, no God, no deity. But we could get reassurance for a deva. A deva can make us think about, maybe we're laying there, feeling very sick and very sad for ourselves. Woe is me, I'm so sick, I'm dying. It's probably some man with a cold, got the common cold, got a bit of a cough and a sneeze. What your average bloke's like, I'm dying, can't move. And deva could maybe remind the bloke, hey, you've only got a cold, snap out of it. Because sometimes devas do come and remind us what we're supposed to be doing. They can't make us do anything. There's the sutta where the monk's meditating and he sees the hunter go past in the forest. And he decides that, when the hunter comes back, he's going to have a word with him about, his profession, wrong living. And a deva comes down and tells him to mind his own business. Why are you wasting your time? Get back to your practice. As a professional hunter, you're not going to be changing his mind. Stop worrying about it. Worry about your own affairs. You're not enlightened yet. Get back to work. And that was it. So the deva can't physically stop him, so to speak, but he can offer him the advice. That guy's a professional hunter. Why are you wasting your time worrying? There's nothing you can do about it. And so he gave advice to the monk, and the monk chose to listen to the advice of the deva. He could have ignored it as well. In this particular case, he chose to accept it. So, we can, we ask the devas to look out for us on occasions and stuff like that. And the sutras, it talks about how the devas can protect us from certain dangers. And maybe you're sitting in the forest and there's a cobra approaching your way, and the deva drops a coconut on its head, drops a coconut near it and makes it turn away. Stuff that sort of thing could happen. quite possible. So that's why we do. We share merits with the devas. And often, Dhamma talks, you'll invite the devas to come and to listen to the Dhamma talks and stuff like that, because they are around, they talk about tree devas and all this sort of stuff, so they're around us. I've seen a few photos circulating, which apparently have devas in them. I'm not 100% convinced, but I couldn't find anything that was consistent with a problem with the aperture on the whatever it's called, on the camera, the lens of the camera, because if it was something on the lens of the camera, then every photo you'd expect the abnormality to be in exactly the same place, but they're not. They're moving from place to place. So you wonder, what is this orb? What is this light? It's not visible to the naked eye. You can't see it when you're actually looking, but you take a photo and it shows up. Now, as I say, because of that very reason makes me skeptical, and you think, well, it's something on the lens. But then if it was something on the lens, it would be in the same spot in every photograph. But because it's different and they're different sizes and there's more of them and sometimes less of them, then it makes you wonder, perhaps this is a deva being picked up, or devas being picked up during Dhamma talks and stuff like that. So I'm not prepared to say no.
When we go to the sacred places like
Kusanara,
and then those Rubini,
Rubini,
when you photograph, you can see a lot round thing. And then some very bright color. Is it devas?
That's what I was talking about.
Oh,
actually.
Because when we take here, we don't see, but when we go to the
Yes, we do.
not as many as that.
I've seen them in the Ashoka Hall, photos taken in the Ashokas, photos taken in the Bodhi tree.
But I saw one at the auditorium, and after the retreat, they photographed, we saw one. But the magnitude of it is less compared to the holy places. Here maybe we can see one or two. But in holy places, a whole photograph, especially Kushinaga, the place there, a lot. So it's a deva.
Yeah, quite. That's the phenomenon I was talking about, which I thought possibly was the lens, but it's just no. I don't think it's the lens. There's too many of the change positions. So
it's not only the devas, but different beings they come to listen to the Dhamma. So that like the yakas, the pretas, they got different class.
It's the round
Even
one,
the devas,
right?
yes, the same thing. They will show up in forms. So it's not only the devas.
Definitely. And you would expect that some of the holier places are there, they would, because don't forget, the holier places, you've got a lot of people. See, here we get a lot of people coming, we get a lot of people meditating, we get a lot of people chanting, but probably not quite as many as Bodh Gaya. Probably get one or two more people visiting than Brickfields gets visiting. Therefore would attract more beings from whichever realms they're coming from. There's bound to be a lot more, because there's a lot more devotion taking place. So you would expect to see a lot more.
How will the person know that whether he already becomes Sotapanna? Because sometimes by reading the Dhamma, by understanding the Dhamma, we also know that we know that how to get rid of the first three factors, right? Because first three factors, if you understand Dhamma well, you intellectually you will get rid. But actually sometimes, so how would a person know that whether he truly penetrate
Because
the path?
well, first of all, you'd have unshakable faith. That's unshakable faith. There'd be no way that anybody would be able to turn you away from the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. There'd be no doubt whatsoever in your mind that the teachings of the Buddha are true. So that's an unshakable faith. in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. And that's probably the biggest one. See, in one of the suttas, I forget which one it is, there's a guy, he dies, and they say to the Buddha, about where's he been reborn? And the Buddha says, when he died, he was a Sotapanna. And they go, it can't have been, he drank. He was a drinker. And the Buddha said, at the time he died, he had unshakable faith in the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. And he is a Sotapanna. So this was a guy who was a bit of a drinker, so he obviously wasn't keeping all the precepts. But at the point of his death, he had so much conviction, so much confidence, that he became a Sotapanna. And so you can be on the path, or you can actually be in the stream. One of the two. They do say if you're on the path, when you die, you would attain stream entry. And so if you're on the path, I guess you're fairly confident in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. Your confidence is growing. You've got good friends. That's another important one. And the path of a Sotapanna is to have good friends. So you can't be hanging out with all sorts of deviants, As you hang out with those kind of people, you start to go down to their level. It's very hard to drag people up. And most people find it easier to drag you down than just for you to lift them up. So you've got to have good friends. And although it doesn't necessarily mention it in the sutras, I would say that you need to be meditating. Or I'd say you've probably already got a desire to meditate. You're probably starting to meditate. If you've got this sort of confidence in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, I would say that you've already decided to start the practice of meditation. But there's, somebody said one day that you have to have a jhana to become a Sotapanna. Well, that's just rubbish. There's absolutely nothing in the sutras at all that says you have to have jhana to become a Sotapanna. It's not true. But I would suggest that you'd probably be starting the practice of meditation, because if you'd heard the teachings of the Buddha and you had unshakable confidence in these teachings, then you would understand that, it says that meditation is the one-way path to Nibbana. And anybody who's a Buddhist who understands that would start to practice meditation, because that's the ultimate path. Sotapanna is just the beginning. So you would know, because you would have this confidence that is absolutely unshakable. Nobody's going to convince you otherwise, even if it sounds easy. Well, if you come over to us, all you got to do is pray and you're guaranteed to go to heaven. No hard work, you can live the life you want. You're guaranteed. You just sit there and go, no thanks. Not interested. Buddhism. So you got such a confidence. There's just no doubt in your mind whatsoever that this is the correct path. This is the path that leads to enlightenment. It's not a path that's going to get you part the way there, but not all the way there.
So could I say that those who renounce from the world, they have very unwavering confidence, faith in Buddha Dhamma Sangha, because only then they can renounce from the world. So they are already on the path to Sotapanna.
Yeah, possibly on the path. Not everybody who's renounced is renounced for the right reasons.
For financial reasons.
Some have renounced for the financial reasons. Some have renounced so that they don't get arrested by the police. Not me. No. Wasn't me. But I understand that in some countries, if you leg it into a monastery and in robe, the police can't get you while you're in robes. And so there are monks that have put robes on to prevent themselves from being arrested for it. Now that's not to say they won't become a good monk, by the way. even if they've enrobed for the wrong reasons, they could still become good monks. But it's not necessarily. Some monks are definitely there for the wrong reasons. Some are there because in certain places you can make quite good money as a monk, and that's definitely not why we sign up. Most people don't say, "Oh, I think I'll become a monk because that's a good living, fairly decent wages." No, the paycheck at the end of each week is very thin. But there are ways of a monk to make money, and some monks know how to do this, and they're nowhere near the path, scrambling around in the bramble bushes somewhere, They're doing all the wrong things, because they definitely they're not interested in anything except making money. They're way off the path. So not all renunciants have renounced. Some of them are just wearing robes and aren't actually renunciants. And unfortunately we see way too many of them. I believe if you go to Chinatown of a night time, you'll see them selling amulets to tourists. It's not a renunciant. That's somebody who's bringing Buddhism into disrepute. Definitely not a renunciant. Anybody else? How is Buddhism in New Zealand? It's growing. It's growing year by year. Now a lot of that, of course, we got a lot of Asians in New Zealand. I remember, last time I flew home, I hadn't been in New Zealand for 20 years. I stepped off the plane and it was like I was still in Asia. It was just, Auckland City is full of, there's Chinese, there's Malays, there's Koreans, there's Japanese, you name it, they're there, I saw more Asian faces than I saw white faces, Oh, great. Well, hey, I've come home and I haven't left Asia yet. It was absolutely brilliant. So there's a lot of the, we got there's Thai temples in New Zealand, there's Sri Lankan temples in New Zealand, Chinese temples, Tibetan temples, Vietnamese temples, Cambodian temples. There's temples all over the place, And of course, Kiwis are more and more. At the moment, most Kiwis are more interested in the meditation side of things, with a little bit of Dhamma. But your average Kiwi's kind of interested in meditation, because they want to have a peaceful mind. But there are a lot of Kiwis who are now, more interested in the Dhamma, and so it will continue to grow. And according to the last census, Christianity's dropped from 60-something% to 48% of the population. So the population is moving away from the looks of things. A lot of people are moving away from the church, and either going to nothing or converting to something else. And I think some of it, there's definitely, in the West there's quite a big growth in Buddhism throughout the West. Of course we all know about Ajahn Brahm. In fact, I think somebody told me that Buddhism is the major religion in Western Australia. So if that's true, that's wonderful. It's overtaken all the other religions. America, Germany, Russia. Who'd have thought Russia? Buddhism's quite strong in Eastern Europe. Russia, the Ukraine, places like that. There's Buddhist temples. It's growing. Because a lot of people see it as a very, a lot of people, they're just interested in peace and harmony. And they say, if I was going to choose a religion, it would be Buddhism. Because Buddhism is based upon peace and harmony. And that's where people get their interest, is, so what is this religion? How does it work? And so yeah, the interest is there, and it's grown, and I believe it will continue to grow. Anybody else? Okay, if there's nobody else.
Don't you think it's very difficult for us to practice in the very conditions? When we are in retreats, we're able to calm our mind quite to a certain extent. But when we go back to our worry situation, then we cannot. So many.
Well, see, that's it. Look, I admire lay people a heck of a lot. Any lay person who can practice out there in their world, I have got the greatest admiration for, because they are really doing it hard. Now, it's easy for me, I don't have to worry about going to work, supporting family, all these worldly worries. And of course you're going to have worldly worries. This is the karma of a lay person, is to have all these worldly worries. And that's why when you see lay people doing so well in their practice, I just think they're wonderful. That they, even amongst all the junk that they have to put up with, they're obviously putting in some practice, to be the way that they are. It just absolutely amazes me, And so yeah, it's difficult, and that's why I have so much admiration for the laity that do it, because they're really doing it the hard way. Just absolutely, it amazes me. If I had a hat, I'd take my hat off to you. Greatest respect, to be able to do it out there in the world. I'd be down the pub. I'd be having a beer. I'd be really struggling. I really would. So I got the nothing but respect for lay people that can just get out there and do it. I think you guys are wonderful. I really do. See, sitting in the forest is very conducive. Nobody to disturb me. Occasional monkey. Scared by the occasional cobra, so I've quite got used to snakes. We don't have snakes in New Zealand, you see, so I kind of have a problem when I see snakes. But there's nothing to disturb you, nothing to disturb your mind. Very easy to meditate. For people who can do that same practice at home, in between all the other chores they've got to do, yeah. That's just amazing. Well, you can all give yourselves a pat on the back. Very well done. So, one last thing to do. Back to 5 precepts. Otherwise, you'll be sleeping on the floor tonight, huh? Okay. Panatipata Viramani Sikapadam Samadhiyami Atinadana Viramani Sikapadam Samadhiyami Kamisu Michachara Viramani Sikapadam Samadhiyami Musawada Viramani Sikapadam Samadhiyami Sura Miraya Majapamadhatana Viramani Sikapadam Samadhiyami. Okay, so that concludes today's 8 precept observation day. It's been a pleasure to spend the day with you, and may you all be happy, may you all be healthy, and may you all attain Nibbana in the shortest possible time.